Welcome back to the Awakening Potential Show. This is a space where the ordinary softens and the extraordinary is allowed to emerge. I'm your host, Karen Rudolph, and this show is for visionary leaders who carry a lot and have learned a lot and quietly know that there's so much more, not more to do, rather more to remember. So here we talk about awakening, not as a concept, rather as an experience through real stories, embodied wisdom, and conversations that meet life where it actually is. So this is where sassy confidence meets classy wisdom and badassy brilliance gets to be expressed without apology. So take a deep breath, take some notes, and let's begin. And I am so honored to be sharing the space with someone who I actually met, had a great conversation with, and his journey truly reflects the heart of all his work that he's put out there. My guest is Kory Sea Shadow Neely, and Kory has come up to be one of the first voices in Canadian hip hop music. He learned the grit the hard way, and he speaks plainly about what actually supports people moving forward. So today's conversation is going to land not just in your mind, but in your body. Welcome, Kory, to the Awakening Potential Show. I am so excited to have you here because I know you're doing music, film, but welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here. Thank you so much. I'm honored. And you said sassy and classy. Now you raised that bar for me. I'm like, oh boy. I hope I don't let you down in your audience. I mean, this could be, oof.
Now,
But I'm going to shoot for sassy and classy. It's my new one.
sassy and classy, I love that because it really makes me feel like I want to just energize. So we're here to
Amazing.
energize others and lift others through our stories, which
100%.
you definitely have. And you've shared so much with me. And I'm so honored for that because I know we all have challenges. But before we get into any of that, I always
Yeah.
like to start and rewind it a little bit and go back to your younger days as a child. What was that defining moment that impacted you to become who you are today?
Wow, that's a really great question. And starting off a really good point in my life. It's funny. Ironically, the moment I would say I grew up as an awkward kid, was uncoordinated. And not to be negative and bring negative energy into my life at that point. I didn't have a lot of parental support or encouragement necessarily with music or creative or being an artist. That wasn't really raised in my house. I was into athletics, etc. But I would often take a tennis racket we had in the house and pretend that it was a guitar. And I would be pretending to play along with Elvis Presley. And I was a big fan of Hound Dog and Jailhouse Rock. And I learned those two songs as a young child. And I would be in the house just pretending that I was performing and playing those songs. My parents owned or partly owned a restaurant, a tavern on the outside of the town that we were living in. And their friends were in a band that traveled through Europe at the time and performed with this band. And I actually got up on stage. They brought me on stage as a 7-year-old child, and I performed Hound Dog and Jailhouse Rock on a Saturday night, I think it was, as a child. And I would say that the energy that I felt, I think in the house performing for the family, relatives come over and it's like, oh, show that neat thing that you did. And I'm sure kids did it all the time in ballet or gymnastics or whatever you're doing. You're always showcasing your child. It was just a little different. That didn't really happen in my household. So I think when I had that moment of being up on a stage and feeling the energy, I couldn't explain it. I wouldn't have been able to articulate what that was, but I loved it. And I think you hear that a lot in actors and Broadway performers. They say they got the bug that first time. Normally it should come in high school or a little later in life. But I did the circuit of music lessons, etc. But I really go back to that moment in time. I can remember it. Standing in the living room, all alone, with the record player on vinyl. Here's for younger viewers, they're gonna be what vinyl, playing vinyl. We're pulling that record out, and we had a very eclectic music collection. So I grew up around that. That was a blessing. So to just land the plane on it, we had, oh my gosh, CCR, and we had funk, and we had a country. We had just an eclectic music collection. And Elvis was the one that I think it was just it just resonated, the grit and just the performance. I didn't really watch or see his performance, but I felt the energy. So I was up there, and that's always carried with me. And I think that bug of being up there, and I'm sure that most of the people in that bar were just clapping. It was like, oh, cute little kid, because I don't think it was a wowing performance that would have got me through American Idol or anything like that. But it was really enjoyable. And I carried that through my years, and I went on and I've obviously gotten into music, which discussed later. But musicals, I got involved in musicals in high school, large scale productions, and I've always enjoyed it. I've always enjoyed that.
So would you say that your hero growing up was Elvis Presley? If not, was it someone else or?
I think I wouldn't say necessarily that he would have been my idol or an idol. I think I've always been drawn to positive energy or positive vibrations that would come from people. I would see it in the community. If there was a teacher or an adult or somebody that whatever reason was resonating with me, and a coach, a really good play all kinds of different sports, and then there might be one that sticks out. And it's how they interacted with you. It was how they lifted you up as a child. They weren't preaching to you or trying to be that guiding rail per se, but they were instilling wisdom unbeknownst to you. You didn't realize it at the time. And they shaped and molded you. And I think that's really what's missing nowadays. It's that real community. It doesn't matter what community you go to, that there was a sense of community and there were people that inspired you. So for me, I think I've always looked and found inspiration in interaction with people that have a message or a story or something in their experience. I often say I am the sum total of all the experiences of all the people I've ever met.
Absolutely. I love that. I
And I
love
firmly believe that I was an old soul as a child. So I was always around much older people. I would listen more than I talk. So I think that I took that in. So I wouldn't say necessarily it was Elvis or it was an actor or it was a comedian. I've always found I didn't follow the trend. So where everybody had posters up on their walls or they liked certain people, I think I appreciated a profound humility that somebody would be very profound and that people liked. And then I would peel the layers back of fascination. What was their message? Did they appeal? Did they say things that hit my ear that I liked, that inspired me or made me feel good? Or was it just performative to turn off the show? So
I
it's kind
love
of,
that. So going back to that 7-year-old who was asked to be on stage, they
yeah.
say, I've always heard, especially, I remember my first time I got on stage, I never sang.
Mhm.
I'm not confident enough to, and I'll be the first to admit, I'm not confident enough to sing. I'll sing in the shower, but God knows
Yeah.
what that sounds like. But most people will
Right.
say that one of the biggest fears in life is being up on stage. For
Yep.
that 7-year-old who was not only on stage singing, was it fear or was it seeing the audience respond to you that got you through? What was that moment? You
Question. I would say it was fearlessness because
remember?
I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. I didn't put a lot of thought to it. And if I can weave that message into a positive message for people now, I say you're getting in your own way often when you overthink and when you think. And you can often set yourself back. The situation doesn't set you back because
Exactly.
you're putting too much thought in the moment. Don't throw caution to wind necessarily and just go for it. But at the same time, don't talk yourself out of it. Don't analyze. Don't over rationalize. And I think in that moment, particularly, I really didn't know what to expect. I saw the performance. I wasn't motivated by the attention. I wasn't motivated by the cheering or the applause or whatever it was. And that guy got up. It was very energetic. It was very, whoa, this is great. It didn't satisfy or fill a need or a void that I felt was absent. I went with it. And it was, as a child, you're not thinking a lot of it. I will tell you, I have horrible stage fright. I have a very, very difficult time performatively getting up in front of groups of people. And I'm comfortable saying that now because it is a feeling shared by probably 90%, maybe even more performers. I think it's astronomical. Many of my peers that I performed with on stage in front of large crowds, concerts, I've performed in concerts, I've opened as a headline, I've been a headliner, I've opened for people and mixed genres as well. So that adds a lot of stress and pressure. I'm not necessarily the favored genre of music at the time. Being on television, being on radio, all these things that I've done, I'll be very candid and say I've learned to contain it and rise above it and really compartmentalize that fear. That I will not let that fear swallow me up, but I don't kid myself. It's there. And I've talked among my peers when we've been together, and they're like, I was terrified back then. And I thought it was just me. And I witnessed a lot of things, unfortunately, with music. It's prevalent with musicians, a lot of drinking and substance abuse, things to just I think try to take the edge off of the fear because you can't manage it, you can't control it, and it transforms into life. It's not just musicians. I think people have these issues,
Mm.
a fear of different things, and they don't know how to tame it, control it. If you can get on the other side of it and figure out how to compartmentalize it and hold it in its place, I think you can move forward. It can be a strength. It can be a mighty sword and shield in your approach to how you take on life and take on challenges. But again, I would just say I'm terrified. In High School Musical, I was deathly afraid of forgetting my lines. I played Harry the Horse in Guys and Dolls, and I had a Brooklyn accent. I was a Brooklyn gangster. Spent a lot of time in New York as a kid in hip hop, so the accent I gravitated toward an old Brooklyn accent pretty easy. Character went over well, and people loved it, but it didn't mean that every time I performed, I didn't feel that fear. And if I just would add to this, and I want people that do listen to this to take heart and take note of this, performatively, I have no problem sharing this with people. I choked on stage. I absolutely flubbed, blew it, choked massively as a young teenager in front of a full audience during a performance. I blanked, couldn't remember the next lyrics. I started into the song and there was no recovery and I couldn't get it back. For anybody that's familiar with the American rapper Eminem, it's in his movie 8 Mile, and he documents, I think it's part of his character, but we do share the same experience. Is that in hip hop in the early days, we used to battle on stage and it was impromptu and that was the best, or it was scripted and it was songs. When I started out, that's exactly what it was. It was often, and kids call them now, younger people call them ciphers. It's the ability to freestyle off the top of your head and battle. And you're in the moment, lyrically jousting with your opponent on stage, whether it's a cappella or what it is. And I was up as part of a collective performance. These were my friends. These were people I was growing up with. These are people that had come to see the show. And I thought my life was over. I was so devastated. I remember I went home. I remember my mom trying to console me. And she's obviously saying, your whole life ahead of you. And for her, pop in a genre was just developing, was coming out of nowhere. So it wasn't really taken seriously by the adults. But for me, I was crushed. Couldn't find my way through the hurt. It was a fog. I didn't know how to deal with it and how I was going to deal with that. And it certainly is traumatizing. And you don't know what your next steps are. And I think people that aren't in music can share something in their life that makes them feel paralyzed with fear and they don't know how to do it. And you really have, it's a storm. You will weather it. You will survive it. You'll come out on the other side of it. You have to walk through it one foot in front of the other, and you will get through. You will.
Absolutely. Jumped ahead a bit. So just for the listening audience, just to give them that little gap, how did you get into hip hop as an art form after you've been on stages? And then when did you get into it? How old were you when you get into it?
So my back, so after 7, 8 years old, it was a bit of the passion I was interested in. In Canada, it was a bit different, a bit difficult. We had some very notable, but they all journey south into America and become American actors. So that's sort of a decision for a lot of people to decide if that's what they want to do. I didn't really pick up on it. I was sort of between athletics. My grandfather played for the Brooklyn Dodgers farm team, and he had baseball in his life, and it was something that I was doing. I was naturally gifted, a baseball athlete, loved it, thought maybe that would be where I was going to go. High school, so just before I got into high school, junior high school, dramatic arts classes. So that I gravitated toward being on a stage and characters and acting. I've always been a bit of a character with my friends and around with them and that kind of thing. So kind of to channel it toward character acting on stage. Then the teachers encourage you, they see that. So they're kind of moving me in that way before I got into high school, school for the performing arts, etc. That's a path that I got me an appointment to perform to get into a school for performing arts. And unfortunately, the slot was filled just before my audition. And I redirected me to another school in my city that had a performing arts program. They offered set building. It was very expansive. It was very impressive. And every 2 years, they got special funding to put on a large scale musical with props. So that's went to that school and a whole chapter there. Musically, what happened? It's a great story. I grew up in Toronto. For people in America that may not be familiar with it, Toronto is similar at the time to like with the boroughs, right? Boroughs. And that I lived in, or the community that I lived in, was North York. I went to school in East York, so Toronto was broken up into different communities. The particular community that I lived in was predominantly black. And in my school that I went to, I was one of very few Caucasian looking white. And just for an ethnicity lesson, my background's actually Irish and Native Indian. Actually, my grandfather lived on a reservation. So I've been culturally my life in the sense that my father immigrated to Canada, became a Canadian citizen. And my grandfather, as I said, lived on a reservation. So Diversity has always been an appeal. We have various diversity in my family as well, and rich with culture, I would say. So, getting into the music, I went to a junior high school that was predominantly black. And I've always been good at writing stories and storytelling and creative writing. That's my strength. Math, I mean, you can put two on the table and ask me what's there. I say three oranges. Like you, who knows what I'm going to come up with counting. And
Right.
the base of hip hop and in the MC or the writing and the storytelling and its origins is a lot of it is poetry and storytelling. And that time and age, it sounds so funny, is kids used to do this thing called mother burns. And they would say, you're so dumb, your mom's so dumb, your mom should call 7-Eleven to find out what the hours are. It's kids being kids, and we'd be cutting each other up. And it started to gather audiences. And hip hop was budding musically, but what was actually happening was we would have contests, impromptu battles at school where we were cutting up each other. I mean, it's not a positive thing, I think, in the world, but it was more like gallows humor, a little bit dark humor, and the kids just, performatively chopping you up, so to speak. And a couple of the kids noticed that I don't want to say it, but it was so very unnatural, very quick-witted, sharp with my tongue, scathing. And the comebacks where the kids were actually writing out their list or the things they wanted to say. I was just like coming up with one after the other. They started scheduling contests and competitions. And that evolved into this one particular kid saying, you should put this to music. And he identified. So he had actually said to me, recognized the talent in me. And again, that community, right? Not an adult or somebody mentoring me, but he was active in genre. And I thought it was fascinating. At the time, I was a little break dancer. I used to go to the malls and get chased out by security. So just the whole thing. And I would say, honest, and for people at large, hip hop is composed of four pillars. And it is breakdancing and dancing. It's graffiti art and the artistry. It's DJing and MCing or rapping. And the fifth one is people hear is the human percussion or the beatboxing. So hip hop is four or arguably five pillars or pillars to it. And that is somebody like just because you rapping is an element of hip hop, right? So that's sometimes where the confusion comes in. So the overarching is hip hop. And when I first got into hip hop and what authenticates me within the genre, my accomplishments is that I started out breakdancing. I was dancing and the malls and loved doing that. And I was into artistry and creative and drawing and graffiti art, tagging and marking and painting and stuff. I learned to do that. And then it was DJing. And I got into DJing, much like my friend here on this fascination of creating music. And then I fell into the actual production, the writing. So the storytelling became hand in hand. They all kind of collided. The love for poetry and writing a story and script writing with stuff like that. So by the time I hit high school, it was a storm of all this creativity within this genre that I would say other kids that did like music groups, bands, Battle of the Air bands. Hip hop brought a whole different bunch of opportunities for me that were different than mainstream music. I mean, someone like guitar, they would be in a band, or if they like piano, they would seek out a band. With hip hop, it could be individual but collective at the same time, and there's a lot of it that go into it. It's not just sort of a one and done. You're a good dancer, away you go. You're a good DJ, away you go. It really does become communal, very community. So that's the track I got there. That the kids around me, and I will be grateful in my life. And I'll say this, and this goes back to the humility I think as a child I had. Although I liked that music, as I said to you, I was always looking at other people's stories. The kids that I grew up with were my mentors and supporters. They were the ones that encouraged me. They were the ones that convinced me that I had talent, that it would come out. They gave me the platform within our community. And like I said before, we were talking about people tearing people down and building people up. I knew that what I had was a God-given talent, and I built on that, and that's where the confidence came from. But it was also through the friendships and the relationships I had, absolutely. So that by the time I had gotten into high school, and we might be jumping ahead, is that I had the confidence at the age of 17, taking high school course to negotiate an international distribution agreement for our record, just shy of my 18th birthday. I was in a group, and our record is the first authentic hip hop record in Canada to be sold internationally and distributed. No
That's
parents, no adults in the room. And we had a stones, if I can say that. I mean, we were and collectively we came together, and this can duplicated. The world isn't that way anymore. But we mainstream music, mainstream record signing artists, they didn't know what to do with this rap, this hip hop. It was
Yeah,
Run DMC was out at the time, and that's all you had. So me making my pathway into music, that jumping that art would be is it's starting out with poetry and to yeah, like I felt yeah, I left, signed that distribution deal. I knew that I was just short of 18 years of age, so they couldn't do anything to me at the time because you
yeah,
can't do anything to a 17-year-old.
exactly.
But by the time the record was out, I was 18. And at 18 years of age, not having finished high school yet, I have a record being distributed
That's
globally. Australia, Japan, the UK, America, places I'd never been, I'd only seen in a book. We didn't have Google, so I couldn't Google Earth anything at that time. And you certainly couldn't get information. You were learning from adults, and you're learning from listening, being humble and growing through your experiences with other people. And obviously with your self-confidence, the potential that you have. I left my school, I got on the bus, didn't have a car, so I got on the bus, and it was like an hour's bus to sit with men in suits who are executives, and they're just looking at me like, okay, kid, what do you want? And I'm like, I was like 8 feet tall. I was like, this is going to be a multi-billion dollar industry. And they're like, really? And I'm like, absolutely. This is the best thing. You got to hear this thing. I don't know about that. Like that's and I convinced these men, and they signed a deal. And the last bit I would just say is they wanted to do a local Toronto couple of stores, put it on the shelf. And I said, no, we want like worldwide. And they're what? And they said, well, we can put it in stores in Toronto. We'll see how it does, and then maybe across Canada. I said, nope, want a global distribution deal. If you can't do it, I'll go somewhere else. And they're like, I think they were more entertained. I think what I did is I was inadvertently performing for these executives, and they were like, you know what? I got a story to tell people about this kid. So buttoning that piece up there of what it was, hip hop was going through all the different aspects of the genre and culturally growing, and again, the knowledge and the bravery and that moment to sit on the business side of things and execute an agreement. And then we actually had to put the record out. So we had to do all that stuff and have it pressed. We pressed it ourselves. We did all these things and to manufacture it and get it out. And we did a limited run of it. And it is the most incredible achievement, I think, that it opened the gates to say, what's next? What can I do next? And it's
Exactly.
just never stopped since then.
I love that. I love that. I want to just take a quick pause because I want to remind the listening audience
Mhm.
that if you'd like to connect with Kory and hear more about his story and such, then it's going to be in the show notes. So definitely come and look at that. I'm curious, do you have like a YouTube video or clip of the breakdancing and the beginnings that we can put into the show notes for the listening audience? Or is that something that,
Oh, he was young?
yeah,
Yeah,
I think it'd be
nobody had any
fun.
cameras. It wasn't like they were pulling out. Karen,
That's
they were. I wish that it had been caught. I would say there is a gold, and I say this. I start with a statement like that people go, "Oh, really? This guy really thinks highly of himself." When I say gold, you have to realize I have an incredible sense of humor. I find humor in myself. I am the person that slip and fall on the ground and look up and say, "Why aren't you laughing?" So when I say that there's a piece of gold, we were on a national broadcast show in Canada in 1987, I believe it was 1988, right around the time our record was coming out.
mm,
And I did it and performed. It was sort of a performance set, like much like you see on like the Late Show, the Night Show, when they would be bringing out guests. There was no venue or platform really for it, but this national broadcast show called Switchback came out, interviewed at our local rec center, and we performed the song and we did an interview. And I've been trying to coordinate with this broadcaster, go through their archives and get this video. I'm gonna try, but really trying to coordinate with them. It's hard to find it because the method in they broadcast back then and labeling, et cetera, et cetera. When I say it's gold, it's because I laugh. I mean, it's terrible looking back at photos or old films of ourselves as kids, but I was very light in that moment. I mean, I wasn't I was being myself, and it was clear on camera, and I laughed at. And I say because I was wearing a baseball cap, and the host, Eric Tunney, and I just want to say, God rest his soul, the poor man. He battled demons in his life. He was a stand-up comic, and sadly took his life. But he was again an energy that I felt that made me feel good on that set. And it was my first media interview and performing. He was just kind. And when I mean, you got to remember, he's a stand-up comic. So he's asking, hats, and that's part of your uniform and this big thing, does that, and I didn't miss a beat. The problem was I'd come from school. I hadn't gotten a haircut. My hair was a mess. And I said, no, I just wearing this hat because it's wrecking my head. My hair's a mess. And it's like, and he kind of snickered. And I think that that kind of stuff is great when it comes out in an interview because I wasn't trying to showboat or whatever. It was just no rules, don't know where to
Awesome.
go. And there's a little bit of performance in there. And at that time, I would have been 17. But the real nuggets, I guess, before, like, no, there was no way to film that was just, I mean, not even because
Uh,
everybody had the
it
help.
sounded good. It sounded good.
Yeah, but I mean, in music, it was a lot of complications with funding and the cost of doing videos. You had to be signed to a major label because we were independent. We didn't have the benefit of putting out music videos. So I only recently, last about 10 years ago, came back into the music scene, kind of really jumping ahead by others and a summit just to re-release some material. I did it, and I funded myself some music videos. So I do have a YouTube channel with music video production, but it's not performative in the sense that I'm out, traditionally rapping, performing, or driving in an expensive car. I got into some storytelling more for the audience to enjoy. But if I can get that a link to that nugget, that the
I love
value for your audience, they will laugh because I'm laughing at myself when I see it.
Awesome, awesome. So I'm going to jump back because I'm very curious. I've got a curious mind anyway, but I'm very curious, Kory, being one of the first to do hip hop, how was it received? And I'm sure it must have come with some challenges as well. I mean, life gives ups and downs anyway, and I'm sure we've all, those, but being
Yeah.
amongst the first, not knowing what it was, like,
Mhm.
how was it received?
It's there's multifacets to this. So you're going to look at the cultural aspect and you're going to look at the industry aspect and then there's the genre aspect. So the genre aspect's easiest to address. It's new, it's breaking ground, it doesn't have rules, it's untested. Major industry being around understanding business, I can from it down. Is music industry was trying to figure out a way to capitalize on, right? Like, is this a passing fad? I think those that were in the know really realized no, when this thing took roots, it was going to span off and break off and touch all kinds of different things. So, being a first in that regard, being a pioneer or an architect, and recently acknowledged in Canadian hip music as one of the first 50 Canadian architects in urban music as a contributor. So, being the first, I can comment within the genre first to say challenging because you're becoming a trendsetter. You are try not to, there's not a lot out there to duplicate. It's a lot of experimentation. I think it calls on creativity. And if you've got the right balance of attitude and creative approach, and you can collaborate and you can work with people, I think it's calls on a lot of things. You want to, if you can work with people and share your toys, there'll be, so it was very challenging because there are very few mentors or a lot of people just didn't know. And those in the know were also trying to get a foothold. Everybody was trying to get a foothold. So that made it very, very difficult. Now it's completely making songs in their home and sharing it on a social media platform with millions of listeners. It was School of Hard Knocks 100%. A lot of people thought that they could write music, they would get shut down. A lot of people thought they could perform, they would get shut down. A lot of people thought maybe that we're true creatives. They would realize that it's not for them, and that's just a reality. So there has to, I think you have to be blessed with a lot of talent and energy and patience. I think you really have to find a grounding within yourself, but you go with it a lot and you experiment. You're willing to fail. You're going to get up. If you twice, get up three times. You got to keep going. So that way, in trying to understand the game, because that's exactly what it is in entertainment and music and film. Culturally, people ask me, and I was interviewed last year by a channel from Africa called Viva TV. And it's the first time I've ever had an interviewer ask me, as a white artist in a dominated black genre, how were you received and how did you see that? And it was the first time anybody's ever asked me that question. And interesting
I was
because
getting
here's the truth. The truth is, and this is not, I'm not back when I started, and again, I emphasize community. It wasn't, I wasn't like quickly by the color of my skin or the potential color of my skin or what my culture was. It was, what did I contribute? What was I bringing to it? What did I bring and share with this talent or my contribution to hip hop? It was, I think it definitely catch people's attention because I didn't have anybody to model myself after. At that time, people say, oh, there's some reference points as Vanilla Ice, Eminem. These guys didn't come out for years. I was 1984 songwriting. And it just was not white rappers or white MCs or and white people in hip hop. It just wasn't. And I would tell you again, to answer the genre, it's actually harder for my black peers and counterparts because they would be first looked at, are they copying or duplicating another black artist? That's what they were listening for. So they had were they any good? And two, were they sound like anybody? And now we call karaoke, where you're trying to be a karaoke of something else. For me, I was a true trailblazer in the sense there was nothing for me to look forward to or up to. I couldn't come out and try and sound black because that's gonna fail. That's not gonna sound right. And there was nobody for me to emulate. So I was really on my own, soldiering on, and I was judged on or critiqued on my ability. And the more that I performed, people saw that, and I got feedback from that. The positive feedback really allowed me to grow on from the so from the culture and the genre being of its infancy. And then I would say just industry wise, probably the toughest and hardest part was there were no venues. So you're talking this genre's been to mainstream rock, country, whatever's out there, accordion players here in the world is trying to make its way with no venues to play. You're playing at a rec center for kids or like small events, barbecues, and it's trying to be taken seriously. It's trying to get a foothold as a real talent. It's not on TV. There was only one radio station in all of Canada, and then there was two, and we were down at the one in Toronto. I mean, we were ghetto superstars because we were like everybody knew us from the hood, right? We could get on public transit, and people knew who we were, and the adults are like, is there going to be a fight? Is something going to break out here in the train? They didn't know what was going on. And the other kids are just screaming at these other kids, say, "Yay, what's up? Shadow, what's up?" They're yelling this, and people are like, oh my God, Shadow, what does that mean? Like, is there going to be a problem here? And that's kind of funny from an industry perspective, is it took time. It grew to become financially viable or bankable, monetized, I think is the word I'm really looking for. So you had those. So being the first, and I would sum this up by saying it, I never had of being some platinum music star touring the world. I think that was dreamy, and it wasn't where that's a dream. It wasn't a goal. And I think a wise person once said to me is you need to understand dreams and goals. Dreams are wonderful, feel good. Goals are what you set benchmarks to achieve. I think if you're a dreamer, it's good, but dreams may not carry you, whereas goals will, because even in your darkest times, when you can rise from the ashes. It can be your goal. You will persevere. You can be resilient. I don't think you can have resilience in dreams, but you can have resilience in goals, and you can forge ahead. So, just on that point, I realized that I don't like it as much as it seems comfortable. I don't like throwing a word like architect or pioneer. I contributed. I was at the forefront. I was among, many that put the I have people, I mean, Kory, your shoulders are being stood on by some great talent nowadays that are a particular country or south of the border. I'm just honored to have been a part of it. I love what it's done for me. I have gotten as much as I put in. I'd like to think I've gotten more as a human being able to be around lots of different people, share, grow with this, and being the first as opposed to maybe getting lost in it or caught up in it. I think it's pretty cool. I don't take myself seriously, so I don't idolize. I think I try to always have a balance. If sharing a story or telling a story from back then, if people are in that, then I love doing that and sharing that for the sake of because I was there. But anything that I don't need that, I never have. I think I enjoy other people's stories, and we all have stories to tell, and I want to hear what makes other people good.
Absolutely. And Kory, I believe that's one of your knowing, not that I know you greatly, but come to know you and what I've come to know about you. One of your superpowers is resilience. And I believe that all of these experiences, which are amazing, and congratulations. I mean, something to build to get out there in a global scale and do something big, right? And then all of a sudden, boom, life happens, right? The roller coaster of life. And knowing your story, and if you want to share a little bit about that, and how you took your experience to get through your challenges.
Yeah.
And then here you are, fast forward, now bringing film, right?
Mhm.
because I want to, before we wrap up, make sure we touch on that.
Sure.
So if you, whatever you want towards that.
Yeah, sure. So I'll be transparent about people. Tell I experienced some very serious health issues in my background. And I say this, and I especially send this out to your listeners. People understand this is that we all have within us resilience. It just needs to be built, expanded on, or get out of its confinement, so to speak. Everybody's capable. I'm always saddened when I hear someone has taken their life or something has happened that they're broken. I mean, I've had in my life a young person, very traumatic, tragic, excuse me, and people, I'm a broken person. I am. Those experiences did break me. But the resilience within me filled in, if you want to call them cracks that were smoothed over. They're not gone, but it's recognized that they didn't get the better of me. They will not get the better of me. And I believe that everybody has that. I don't, I'm exceptional. I think I'm an exception to the circumstances that have happened that have maybe gotten me through. And I think that with every experience, negative experience that I've gotten, it's acknowledging, accepting it, and moving forward from it. Okay,
Mhm.
this happened to me, and I know your experience. We've had some great conversations when we first met, and I treasure them. I value those. I truly value the time that you shared and things that you shared with me. It's incredible. You are a remarkable woman, an incredible person, and I wish you even more and all the more success in your life. You deserve it. And I enjoyed hearing your story as much as we're sitting here talking about me. But it's when something comes along, it whether it knocks you down or it runs you over, is you in that moment can either lay there or you get up. And you get up, you drag yourself up, you pull yourself up, you get someone's hands extended to you to pull you up, you get up. When you're up, the next step is to move forward from it. It happened. If you want, there's plenty of time for reflection. There's plenty of time to look at it. It's always going to be there, but you move forward, and you need to do that. That is because that's what's happened in my life with the traumas and the negative things that have happened to me. Is maybe in some respects I was too stupid to appreciate how bad the situation was that happened to me, which is a positive, because I didn't reflect on it and let it ruin me. I found within myself and went with it and embraced it, the strength, the resilience to move forward from it. By the time I was diagnosed with cancer, just a surprise. It's only been the last several years that this happened. Um, Completely out of the blue, looking for something else, and discovered I had kidney cancer. And they took about three-quarters of my kidney. While healing, I developed a near fatal infection, and I was hospitalized for another month. And I pulled through, and I just recovered. I wouldn't say I just recovered from it. It was a bit of a bumpy ride, but I managed to recover from that. It got my attention. And the one before the next event that happened to me is it's not like I had an epiphany, and I don't anybody that has a moment in their life and they suddenly have this epiphany, and whether they find faith or religion or they become a speaker. I didn't necessarily have epiphany. It got my attention, and it just to me to be on a good path to, as I say, you have 100 years to live. What are you going to do with it? Really find purpose, expand on the purpose if you've got it. If you've been kind of laying off a few things, get in family, friends, keep those relationships going, make some new relationships, benefit from the time, because it's when you're laying in a hospital bed and you're trying to recover, you want to be up and out of there. And you're thinking, man, I wish I was just outside walking. I would go take a stroll in the park right now. It doesn't have to
Exactly.
be that dramatic, but people can take that in their everyday life, and they should. And they flatten or become the negative experience that has pinned them down. So the cancer I managed to recover from, and only that a couple of years later, or last year actually, I had a fatal heart attack on Christmas Eve. And without getting into the big long story, but hitting the high important points, is that my mother half, much better half as I like to call her, she had gone to family, and we had a sick animal, and I had to look after our pet. We could do anything, and I had to stay home and look after her. And she was about 12 hours away. And where I stay now is about 2 hours north of the city of Toronto, large 2, 3 million population. I'm in a small, very small town, and I'm bordered by services that are a little remote. Infrastructure is not really close. So my plan was days with Christmas, the animals, whatever. I happened to be, doing some errands around the house, and I started to feel this very unusual feeling. And I would say for anybody out there as a health, you need to look after your health, your physical health, your mental health, your professional health, your job and bills. It is so important. That is really being true to yourself. We talk about resilience. You need to be true to yourself and look after all these things and keep them in order. And it's not to say that I was ignoring anything, but in that moment, I started to feel like this was a bit of a problem. It's Christmas Eve, and unfortunately, where I was, there wasn't an ambulance or fire department getting to me would have taken too long. I made the decision to get in the car and drive. The nearest hospital had been closed due to hospital cuts, 18 minutes away. I drove an hour, having a heart attack, to get to the on Christmas Eve, and took precautions. I got on the phone. I was on the cell phone. I had another one tracking me with a tracker in case I lost consciousness. And I got to the hospital. I didn't know how bad. I didn't realize how bad my situation was. I the adrenaline dump of getting there subsided. So I was like, do I really? It turned out that my blockages in my arteries were 90, I think it was 90%, 90%, 85%, and 75%. When they did they started 2 minutes and they stopped because I was in that bad shape. And the doctors told me, the cardiologist said, you are in really bad shape. They didn't condone the driving, but they said, had I laid down and gone to sleep, it would have been over. They said I had a literally out of my chest. From that,
Yeah.
um, my disappointment was, oh, they're going to cut into my chest. Like, I'm going to end up having to have open heart surgery. This sucks.
Yeah.
And try to find a little bit of humor in it, I guess, because that's how I deal with things. But I ended up having a quadruple bypass and spent a month in the hospital in intensive care. And coming out on the other side was, again, I think I always try. I mean, I hear the empty half full. I try for the upside. If I'm in a conversation with somebody that's negative, I do try to find an upside to that. Is there value in what this person's saying to me in this experience and in this moment? Because everybody has a story. Everybody has something they can contribute. So I was trying to find a bit of a positive in that very dark, scary moment. Surgery took longer than it was supposed to. So that freaked people out a little bit. And I came out the other side and I did had a lot of benefits for me, a lot of positive benefits. The health wise, the heart wasn't damaged, and better, so I won't get into all that stuff for the audience. But it shouldn't have taken a situation like that to put me in a position like that. That being said, I'm aware, got my, and I try to be an advocate and tell men and women positively is just to say, you do not want to have a sunroof installed in your chest. So, things like look at health, look after your blood pressure. Just here's what I would say. Try, try, do, and okay. But you got to try to be a person. Try to find improvements in your life. Look after your health, your mental well-being. Try, make that effort. And that's a lot, and it can really help you. So those are the two things, and I find myself before we get into the other stuff with the film or whatnot. Um, it was thank God in life I've always had a good perspective in the sense that I've seen a situation that I move forward from it. Same way I would see something that's good and capitalizing from it. Because I think when these situations happen late in life, they can take people off the chessboard, so to speak. Or I think that that resilience that's in you is okay. I need to buck up. I need to in this situation because it's going to be a bit of a ride. I'm going to come out on the other side. And I was determined. I joke and say, God isn't finished with me yet. I don't know what he's got in store for me, but he's obviously not finished with me yet. And
Oh,
I like to think my version of God, he's got a sense of humor because we're having some great jokes going back and forth, but he is not finished with me yet, and there is a lot of things I have yet to do. And just
yeah.
anybody, if you are feeling down, seek help. If it means
Yeah.
professional help, there's no shame in it. Go to a friend. You might be surprised somebody that you wouldn't normally speak to, you normally wouldn't share. You're weak or you're feeling vulnerable, and that goes for men or women.
Yeah.
You might be surprised at the sentiment that comes back. Me finding out right or whatever it is that's shared among my peers and other people. Just talk, you got to share those feelings. Talk to somebody.
Yeah. What I love about the story, I had a near-death experience, and I like to believe that people who have, well, first off, acknowledging yourself for having the wherewithal to even say something's off, let me take care of it, rather than something feels weird and oh, it'll pass.
Right?
Right, right. And one of the things I remember reading in your bio was meet the moment, breathe, decide, and
Yeah.
act. And that's exactly who you were being in the moment. And as alluding to what I was saying a moment ago, was I had a near-death experience, and most people that I've met who have
Mhm.
had similar and or close experiences, I believe God has a bigger, higher purpose for us, which leads us into I'm going to say, I know there's a lot in between, and we'll have to come back and just have you on again. But I
I would
believe
love to come back.
absolutely, absolutely, because we have a lot to talk about anyway. And we were talking about started, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh. Great point. So
Um,
we'll just have to do it again, right? So intro, because our time is today. I mean, what you're doing a movie? I'm sure there's a lot in between, but
Yes.
just briefly, like what is that? And where's that going to be road? And
I got involved there very quickly. So the project is called Men Speaking, all one word. And I don't want to shock the audience that it's about men and conversation, transparency of men, and sharing and expressing vulnerability. We're not going for the hits or big celebrity and fame. It's a very ground-based, very grounded reality needed for this time. And the audience is not just guided toward men, and I'll just say it's for men and women, and it crosses all boundaries in terms of cultural and age, and that's what we're not. It's not about ideology. So it's not to entertain to a particular trend of the day. It's about transparent sharing of universal subjects that men experience. I don't want to touch away because we're in the stage we're dealing with the distributions lockdown portion and excuse me, actually going to set in terms of production. But I was invited as a panelist to share my experience. I felt that again, my attitude was I didn't necessarily need to be in front of the camera. I don't need to be the front man. But I saw that this invaluable opportunity needed me behind the camera, perhaps to contribute. And then I became the one of the executive producers on the project to shape it. And I wanted to transform conversation on YouTube to being expansive globally. And so if you can envision America's Got Talent, Britain Got Talent, men speaking, Canada, United States, globally. That is the scale and of this project with different aspects, a companion podcast, live events, and we're actually been gathering film for the documentary. So it is a massive mammoth media platform that is a limited TV series, which you'll see in one of the big streamers, and then the companion podcast associated with it to expand the conversation, to allow more opportunity for that. And then the documentary itself cements aspects, and then there'll be an expo, a live event. You can envision bringing people together in a live experience. That's what we're going doing, and I'm really excited about. We shot the proof of concept not too long ago. I'm really excited about what I've seen. And not again, and when I'm saying project, it's a gift for everyone. It's a project for everyone. And that's
okay.
what I want to see. Happy to hand the baton off to other people to contribute production wise and bring other things into it, expand it, make it larger, make it more. We've written season one, season two in case we're able to get that far. And that's what I want to see. So I think it's unlike a character show, it's entertainment, it passes your time. This is something that I want it to really resonate with people. I want women that with in their lives to be able to say, that's what I made you, or their brother. That's the conversation I had with my brother. And the trailer that we have, the 2 minute trailer, brilliant editing job that was done, has really resonated with men and women. Those are the comments that we've gotten when we focus group. That is, women have said, "I was talking to my brother about that," or my father. I'm happy to be part of something like that. And I think it's very important.
Well, I look forward to that for sure. And I know a few of the people that are in it, so I'm excited. You'll have to let us know when it comes out, and then I'll update, as I was sharing earlier, all of Kory's information and contact information, or it's going to be in the show notes. And I do go back and update as people send me that context, so this way you're updated as well. You've already listened to my show, and it's that time. What's that pearl of wisdom that you want to leave our listening audience with today? That's going to lift them up and awaken potential wisdom within them.
I mean, it's a great question, and it's true. And I love this about your show, and figured I might get the question, perhaps. And I didn't want to have any necessarily scripted. I love that
Yeah.
this is a conversation. Unlike interviews that I've been in, you're handed stuff, and I'm gonna do that. Um, I would point to something. I would say you are. I love the title of the show, Awakening, and a little pearl of wisdom that would be is that we all have greatness in us, and that greatness is immeasurable. And anybody, it's the key, I believe, is awakening it, is finding what that is that awakens it, because everybody's got greatness in them for success, and that success can be shared with others, making the lives of other people great. And I think and I think it can be a beautiful thing. It can make your life worth living and feel well beyond anything that materialistically could be given to you. Is it fulfilling? That's the word I'm looking for. Is I think that if you awaken that potential in you and you realize and you capitalize on it, that can equal fulfillment as a metric. And an article that I had read called Looking Forward in the Rearview Mirror years ago, it was a reflection on my experience. And I would say as a pearl of wisdom for any of your listeners, again, aside from what I just said, is look at your you are at. And you always should be looking forward, but be mindful of that rearview mirror. Put things behind you that need to be behind you, but don't shut them out and blame them out because it will help you navigate as you move forward and maybe navigate some of those pitfalls or potholes in the road ahead of you. And you can find a brilliant path of love and light and truth and resilience. And that
Love it, love it. So for listening audience, if you're listening and that landed for you, trust that it landed for a reason. Kory, you have a gift for the listening audience. What might that be?
So I thought carefully on this. I mean, part of me was come out and do a limited quick performance and do a few bars. And then I thought to myself, depending when your audience is listening to it, it might not land as perhaps a full performance. So what I would like to offer to your audience and coordinate the link is back into the scene about 1986, 87 after a hiatus and working on projects. I have promotional copies, a limited run of up to 50 promotional copies of the songs that I radio. They weren't at the time sold or distributed. There's three songs on this digital envelope, this digital copy. Sorry, on the CD copy, not as a digital copy. So it's actually you can touch it as an item. It's limited at the just for radio stations. For your listeners, it shares songs that I, after a long break, came out with called Resurrection, Lost, and I have to say I'm a little biased, Lullaby of Pain. That release charted number five spot on the chart for several weeks nationally in my country, Canada. For your listeners, I kind of stepped out of nowhere and put all my words I've said today on your show to the test. Got in the studio and collaborated with some great people. We released that. We've been trickling out little releases from my catalog from years ago that weren't released. They've been in TV shows, etc., movies, getting scored in. But I'd like to offer this to your audience because if you are a person that will find value in music, I think you will like what you're hearing. And lyrically, I always like to weave a little story of experience and a little bit of inspiration in there. So for people that do appreciate lyrics, that'll be a fun find. So we'll coordinate, and I'd be more than happy to share those exclusively with listeners, your
Awesome.
audience.
Thank you so much because that's a huge gift. And I get, it takes something and postage and everything else. So if you're listening audience, don't take that lightly. So for the first 50 people,
50.
so for the first 50 people who will come out and awakening,
That's what I need to hear is to say, I'd like them to say, awakening my potential.
I love it. Love it.
Awakening my what I'm looking for the first 50. We'll coordinate that link and we will get you that. Anything it's something to hold on to. Maybe you want to hear it, you can go digitally. If you only consume your music digitally, that's fine. It's a nice to have, but I think that's a nice little gift. Not because of the music, and I have to say the artistry on the cover is an incredible Canadian artist who's won awards and recognized for his. I'm blessed to work with him, and I just love exposing other people's talents.
Love that. I love who you be. Kory, it has been such an honor and a pleasure having you here today. And I just always enjoy our time together. And I'm really clear you and I are going to have another go round of it for sure. Uh,
Yeah.
keep us posted when
Yep.
the,
100%.
yeah, please.
I'm
Uh,
happy to do that. Thank you that your gift was inviting me onto this wonderful program and to your audience. I've had some great conversations with you offline and how it is out with your audience, but you are a remarkable, formidable person. It is a pleasure to have met you. I am truly honored to have met you for us to know each other. And I'm limited in terms of how much I do this stuff, but this has been a pleasure. This has been an incredible experience. And thank you. I absolutely feel blessed.
it goes both ways, as do I. So thank you. For the listening audience, Kory Neely, thank you so much for your honesty, your heart, and your willingness to share and be vulnerable on your journey with us. Such an
Mhm.
honor. Your
And I
story.
wouldn't be a hip hop guy without saying peace out to your audience.
Oh, there you go. Are you still doing any pop at this point,
I
or?
am. I actually, because I have like all things, hip hop is now experiencing what music of 70s, 80s, 60s did. It's coming around again and it's popular. So I was on the album in the 90s to come out. And when your listeners go online, they're going to see this picture and they're going to they're going to be like, whoa, I am claiming it. I had the haircut before Justin Bieber and before Vanilla Ice. So people will be like, oh my God. I wasn't a bad looking guy when I was younger. So when they see the photos online, that was the 90s. And it was just timing. Major labels at the time. There's a song, it's in a lot of Disney movies called Move It. I like to move it, move it. I think ever that was Strictly
Okay.
Rhythm Records. And they were going to sign me, but Reel to Reel was ahead of me. I've had a few stories like that with near misses, but so I have this catalog that's actually being turned out, songs that are being released. And if you go on Spotify, Apple Music, you look up MC Shadow, you'll see me. Get Loose Crew was the record from 1987. I do continue to go in the studio more now, collaborative, meaningful collaborations. I would love to show you what. Let me just say this. I'll drop this nugget. I have been in talks for about a year, just about a year and a half, with a significant to try and do a collaboration with a major artist, like a big artist. They have a beautiful, nobody's touched it. I'm trying through a label that also distributes my stuff to try and get permission to licensing to work on it. It's a classic. It's very tough. It's already been produced, but you have to get the permission to release it. I will actually, I'll let you privately, and then you can. I
Yes.
will. I'll let you privately. It's not finished, but when you hear it, you'll be like, "Oh my!" Like we're trying to get the clearance on that and artists. So I'm doing a couple of things because they're passion projects now, and all donated to charity. I don't do anything now for my own benefit. It's exclusively to try and put back to a charity. And I will only say this for because I think your audience is predominantly American. Artist is a legendary American, well, a legendary within American music. I can't say necessarily the citizenship, but they're an incredible talent. They have a song that resonates through all time, and nobody maybe has gotten the rights for it, but it's been beautifully, incredibly put within my song. It's heard it in music, like that's a banger. That song in the chart. So I'm gonna let you hear it. Privately, and then I would love to come back and have a because I've laid this foundation with you. I'd love to come back and be more joyful and share and we can have some fun because I'm gonna really want to hear some of the stuff that you've done because you're doing some incredible stuff. I'm a fan of yours, lady. I think you're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, to spot one, MC McNeil, Neely, excuse me.
That's good.
Just talking to somebody, McNeil, before you.
Quite Irish name.
It is, it's amazing. Up, your story is such a reminder that transformation doesn't happen all at once. It begins the moment we become aware and continues with those brave, badassy choices we make along the way. And for everyone listening, remember this, the bridge from ordinary to extraordinary is built with small steps of change and big leaps of faith. You're more powerful than you know. So keep showing up, keep awakening your potential. And if something resonated with you today, please reach out to MC Shadow. You'll get him. His contact information will be in the show notes as a reminder. And if something that you want to put out there for me, awaken, put the word awaken, DM me, and you will actually get me. I'm the one that responds. So, as I'm sure Kory will as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Next time, make it an amazing day.
And I hope I was classy and sassy.
You were more than that, and then some. Thank you
All
again.
right. Thanks a lot, Karen. Peace out.